uBiome, the DNA startup that made Theranos look honest. While the entire world fixated on Elizabeth Holmes and her dramatic fall from grace, another biotech company was quietly orchestrating a fraud so audacious it would make Theranos look like a mere accounting error. uBiome, founded in 2012 by Jessica Richman and Zachary Apte, positioned itself as the revolutionary force that would democratize microbiome analysis and transform personalized medicine. The company promised to decode the trillions of bacteria living in your gut with nothing more than a simple at-home test kit, delivering insights that could supposedly optimize your health, prevent disease, and unlock the secrets of human biology. What started as a crowdfunded startup with legitimate scientific backing would eventually evolve into one of the most brazen insurance fraud schemes in biotech history, complete with fake test results, fabricated medical necessity, and executives who treated patient samples like lottery tickets in a billion-dollar scam. The microbiome gold rush of the early 2010s created the perfect storm for uBiome's ascension. Richman, armed with an MBA from Wharton and a background in consulting, partnered with Apte, a Stanford computer science graduate, to launch what they claimed would be the first consumer-accessible microbiome sequencing service. Their initial Indiegogo campaign in 2012 raised over $350,000, promising backers comprehensive analysis of their bacterial ecosystems for just $90. The science seemed legitimate enough. Researchers had indeed discovered that the human microbiome plays crucial roles in digestion, immunity, and even mental health. Major institutions like the National Institutes of Health were pouring millions into microbiome research, and studies were linking bacterial imbalances to everything from obesity to depression. uBiome positioned itself at the intersection of this cutting-edge science and the booming direct-to-consumer health market, claiming they could provide actionable insights from bacterial DNA sequencing that would help customers optimize their diets, identify health risks, and make informed medical decisions. The company's early success attracted serious venture capital attention, with investors betting big on the promise of personalized microbiome medicine. Between 2014 and 2018, uBiome raised over $105 million across multiple funding rounds, with prominent firms like 8VC, OS Fund, and Slow Ventures leading investments that valued the company at more than $600 million. The investor pitch was compelling. uBiome claimed to be building the world's largest microbiome database, with plans to sequence millions of samples and use artificial intelligence to identify patterns that could revolutionize healthcare. They positioned themselves as the Netflix of gut bacteria, promising subscription-based testing that would track changes in customers' microbiomes over time. The company's advisory board included respected scientists and former executives from major pharmaceutical companies, lending credibility to their ambitious claims. Revenue projections showed hockey stick growth, driven by both direct pay consumers and, crucially, insurance reimbursements for medically necessary testing that could prevent costly diseases and reduce healthcare spending. By 2016, uBiome had expanded beyond simple consumer testing into clinical-grade diagnostics, a pivot that would prove central to their eventual downfall. The company launched uBiome Clinical, offering more comprehensive testing panels that could supposedly diagnose specific conditions and guide treatment decisions for physicians. These clinical tests carried price tags of $2,000 to $3,000 compared to the $199 consumer kits, and uBiome aggressively pursued insurance reimbursement by claiming the tests were medically necessary for a wide range of conditions. The company's sales team targeted doctors with promises that uBiome testing could help diagnose irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and dozens of other conditions. They provided physicians with easy ordering platforms, handled all insurance paperwork, and even offered to contact patients directly to facilitate sample collection. What doctors didn't realize was that uBiome had developed an internal system for manufacturing medical necessity, essentially reverse engineering insurance claims to maximize reimbursement regardless of actual clinical need. The fraud machine that uBiome constructed was breathtaking in its scope and sophistication. Internal documents later revealed by FBI investigations showed that the company had developed elaborate schemes to bill insurance companies for unnecessary tests, fabricate medical conditions to justify expensive panels, and even retest the same samples multiple times under different patient names to generate additional revenue. Sales representatives were trained to coach healthcare providers on how to document medical necessity for insurance purposes, often suggesting specific diagnostic codes that would guarantee reimbursement. The company's customer service team would contact patients who had ordered consumer tests and convince them to upgrade to clinical versions by claiming their results showed potential health risks that required medical-grade analysis. Perhaps most shocking was uBiome's practice of automatically ordering follow-up tests without patient or physician consent, then billing insurance companies for these unsolicited services while claiming they were medically necessary monitoring. The quality control issues at uBiome were equally damning, with former employees revealing that the company routinely delivered test results based on incomplete or contaminated samples. Internal quality assurance documents showed that uBiome's laboratory regularly processed samples that contained insufficient bacterial material for accurate analysis, yet still provided customers with detailed reports claiming to identify hundreds of bacterial species and make specific health recommendations. The company's standard operating procedure allowed technicians to extrapolate results from partial data, essentially guessing at microbiome compositions when actual sequencing failed to produce reliable data. Even more troubling were reports that uBiome sometimes mixed samples or used previously analyzed specimens to generate results for new customers when processing backlogs became overwhelming. The company's customer service representatives were instructed to dismiss complaints about inconsistent results by claiming that microbiomes naturally fluctuate over time, even when customers received completely contradictory analyses from identical samples. Jessica Richman's leadership style and decision-making process during uBiome's final years revealed the depths of the company's ethical bankruptcy. Former employees described a culture where questioning scientific validity or insurance billing practices was actively discouraged, with Richman reportedly telling staff that their job was to scale the business, not worry about regulatory compliance. Internal emails showed Richman personally approving billing strategies that she knew violated insurance regulations, including schemes to automatically rebill rejected claims under different diagnostic codes until reimbursement was approved. She allegedly instructed laboratory personnel to prioritize sample throughput over accuracy, implementing production quotas that made proper quality control impossible. When the FBI began investigating uBiome's billing practices in 2019, Richman initially attempted to destroy evidence and coached employees on how to respond to federal inquiries, according to court documents filed by prosecutors. The spectacular collapse of uBiome began in early 2019 when insurance companies started noticing unusual billing patterns and customer complaints reached critical mass. Several major insurers, including Blue Cross Blue Shield and United Healthcare, launched their own investigations into uBiome's billing practices after discovering that the company was submitting claims for the same patients multiple times per month, often using different diagnostic codes for identical tests. The Federal Bureau of Investigation opened a formal investigation in March 2019, focusing on potential mail fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy charges related to the company's insurance billing schemes. On April 30, 2019, FBI agents raided uBiome's offices in San Francisco and South San Francisco, seizing computers, financial records, and laboratory equipment as evidence of the ongoing fraud investigation. The raid effectively shut down uBiome's operations overnight, leaving thousands of customers without test results and dozens of employees without jobs. The aftermath of uBiome's collapse revealed the full extent of the damage caused by their fraudulent operations. The company had processed over 650,000 samples and collected more than $60 million in insurance reimbursements, much of it obtained through fraudulent billing practices that artificially inflated healthcare costs for millions of Americans. Customers who had paid out of pocket for tests discovered that their results were largely meaningless, based on incomplete analysis and fabricated data that provided no actual health insights. Healthcare providers who had trusted uBiome's clinical recommendations found themselves potentially liable for treatment decisions based on fraudulent test results, leading to multiple malpractice lawsuits and regulatory investigations. The scandal also damaged legitimate microbiome research as scientists struggled to separate credible studies from the marketing hype generated by companies like uBiome that had oversold the current state of microbiome science. Jessica Richman's decision to flee the United States in late 2019, just months before federal prosecutors were expected to file criminal charges, added a final dramatic twist to the uBiome saga that distinguished it from other biotech frauds. Unlike Elizabeth Holmes, who remained in the country to face trial, Richman reportedly relocated to Belgium and has since avoided extradition attempts by federal authorities seeking to prosecute her for fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering charges. Her co-founder Zachary Apte cooperated with federal investigators and avoided criminal prosecution, though he faced multiple civil lawsuits from investors and customers. The uBiome case ultimately demonstrated that the biotech fraud problem extends far beyond high-profile companies like Theranos, encompassing an entire ecosystem of startups that exploited regulatory gaps, insurance vulnerabilities, and consumer health anxieties to build businesses based on scientific exaggeration and outright deception. While Theranos captured headlines with its dramatic promises and charismatic founder, uBiome proved that sometimes the most dangerous frauds are the ones operating quietly in the shadows, systematically defrauding insurance companies and patients while hiding behind the veneer of legitimate scientific research and the complexity of emerging biotechnology that few regulators truly understood.